Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to be talking about two different radar detectors, the Escort Redline and the Beltronics Magnum. They are essentially the same exact radar detector. Escort and Beltronics, they're the same company, and they make two different versions of the same detector. So they've got the same capabilities, the same features, even the same performance pretty much, but they have different names and some slight cosmetic changes and whatnot. So um, what you'll see when you look at different test results is you'll see everybody pretty much testing the Redline. However, this guy pretty much offers the same performance and capabilities and yet can be gotten for a little bit less money. So why is it that people would typically run and recommend the Redline? Good question. Let's go ahead and cover that. Well, a little bit of history as to why people have been running the Redline. The detectors fundamentally under the hood are pretty much the same. There is one important difference we'll cover here in just a second. But basically the idea was it was not so much a hardware thing, but a software thing. There was an expert firmware version that came out for this guy. It gave us band segmentation and RDR, BSRDR, we talk about it all the time. Really helped boost the performance of the Redline. That feature was not until recently available for the Magnum, and because of that, people have been buying and running Redlines for a long time. It made a huge difference in performance. Now that it's available in the Magnum, we pretty much, the two detectors have closed the gap and they'll run neck and neck. Now, the software side, they're going to be pretty much the same. Under the hood, they share the same platform, the same radar detector guts, basically. There is one difference, and that is actually the LNA, the low noise amplifier that sits right behind the antenna, the horn, and it actually boosts weak signals as soon as it comes into the radar detector. That's there to give it, better sensitivity, better performance, and longer range. Some of the Magnums do use a different version of this LNA, and the performance typically isn't quite as good as the one that's in the Redline. You can watch my video on LNAs. It goes over all this kind of stuff in detail. Basically what it is you have two different versions. They actually have the same LNA, but the amplifier is actually put into a package here, which is easier to actually apply and attach, once they're actually building everything. The performance typically isn't always as good, and so for that reason, you'll find all other things being equal, the superior LNA will slightly help the Redline barely edge out the performance over the Magnum. You'll see the same thing with the original STIR with the wire bonded LNA versus the newer STIR Plus. Usually the original will outperform the Magnum. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Some of the older Magnums actually had the wire bonded LNA, the superior one. The newer ones have the lower performing packaged LNAs. However, even the newer ones, it doesn't mean that they suck and they're going to be terrible performers. The thing is, you'll actually find, here's where, again, it gets a little bit confusing. Some of the quote-unquote inferior packaged LNAs in the Magnum can actually outperform the superior wire-bonded LNAs available in the Magnum and the Redline. Why is that? Sample variation. There's a whole bunch of little pieces to the puzzle, and that's just one of the pieces. It's one of those things where all else being equal, it can make a difference. But because you have so many components and they all have a little bit of manufacturer's tolerance and variances, it's not like all of the inferior, let's call them Magnums, are going to be worse than the superior Magnums. Again, we've had tests where like the packaged LNAs, which are supposed to have lower performance, can actually outperform the wire-bonded ones. So it's not quite black and white. It's one of those things where all else being equal, there's a little bit of a difference, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a huge difference. Nonetheless, within the enthusiast community, most people will want the older Magnums whenever available. Again, watch my video on LNAs. We go over all this stuff in detail. Basically, older ones use the superior wire-bonded LNA. The newer ones that you buy would have the packaged LNAs, while all the Redlines will have the wire-bonded LNAs. So a little bit of a difference there. Okay, so software is now pretty much the same. Hardware, there are some differences there. Next, let's talk about the case design. All the Magnums have a magnesium case. You can even see it says right there on the case, magnesium construction. The original Redlines also had a magnesium case. Then they switched over to this kind of rubberized plastic. And as of very recently, they've actually switched again to kind of like a shiny plastic. It's not rubberized anymore. Is there a difference? Sort of, kind of, not really. Basically, this is actually really good. This rubberized plastic, it's very easy to hold. It actually doesn't conduct heat as much, so if it's sitting in the sun, this guy's going to get hotter. That heat can get inside the detector, heat up the components, and it may not work as well. So if you're in direct sunlight, the plastic may actually be a little bit better. I haven't seen any direct tests, plastic versus magnesium. It's just kind of one of those things. It's why people use plastic a lot of times instead of metal. This guy's going to get hotter. This guy, not as much. How much of a difference does that make in real life? I'm not too sure, to be honest, but it's kind of one of the differences. The newest Redlines does have kind of a shinier, a little bit more slippery plastic. It's not quite the same as the rubberized plastic that they use here on the Redline, and it's not the same as the magnesium shell you can see here on the Magnum. So case design, there are a little bit different in terms of the actual build materials. The design of the case is also going to be a little bit different. You'll notice the display here on the Magnum, the buttons are right here on the front, whereas on the Redline, the buttons are kind of sticking out here on this little Jay Leno chin almost. You know, if you take a look at it from the side, you can see how it actually sticks out a little bit like this. You can, compare that to the Magnum, where if you take a look there, and you'll see it's actually pretty much flush with the front of the detector. Now, the reason why this can actually make a difference is, let's say you have your radar detector mounted high up by your rearview mirror, like at the top of the vehicle. If that's the case, the detectors would look, kind of like this, and you'll notice the higher it gets, the tougher it is to actually see the display on the Redline because this chin is starting to block it. Whereas the Magnum, you can still see it because it doesn't have that chin sticking out. So it's for that reason, if you're running it high, again, just looking for little differences, sometimes this sort of design here just makes it a little bit easier to see the display and, see the buttons, whereas here they're going to be a little bit covered up, and this chin may actually slightly obscure the display. May or may not make a difference at all, but it's kind of a little thing that we've noticed just comparing the two detectors. Another thing, the Beltronics Magnum, one of the features that it has that the Redline doesn't is you actually have the ability to invert the display. So if you want to run your detector upside down, you can go into the settings, tell it to invert the display, and then your display will now show up properly. Kind of a cool party trick if you need it. You happen to need to run your detector upside down if you have like a special holder for it or something, but for most people it's probably not going to make a difference, but it is one of the differences that you'll find between the detectors. As far as the rest of the settings, they're all the same between the two detectors, they just have different names for the same features. Okay, finally, number 5 is going to be the sounds. The sounds between the two detectors are different. Escort, there's going to be kind of a female voice. With the Beltronics products, you have a male voice. If you turn the voices off, you're not going to notice. The tones for K-band, K-band, laser, X-band, those are also going to be different. If you want to actually hear the differences, I'll do a separate video that you can click on screen or the link in the video description. And you can actually listen to all the Escort Redline sounds and the Beltronics Magnum sounds if you're curious to hear the differences. I'll do a comparison back and forth between the two on all the different bands so you can actually hear what that sounds like. As far as which one is better, some people prefer the Magnum sounds. I happen to prefer the Beltronics sounds slightly. I think they sound a little bit better. These ones will happen to get your attention a little bit better if you've got music playing. They're a little bit more jarring, so in that regard, this can get your attention better. This one may sound more pleasing, but again, totally depends on what you prefer. Finally, the price. Typically, the Redline will be more expensive. The Magnum can be had more affordably. If you go look on Amazon, I've been checking, periodically the past couple weeks, this guy sits in the high $300 range, whereas this guy fluctuates in the 400s, low to mid to upper 400s. So what you could do is if you're looking for a Redline, you can definitely also consider a Magnum. You're going to have pretty much the same performance. I know there's some, potentials with the LNA, which may make a difference, may not make as much as you think. But nonetheless, you're going to have different sounds. You're going to have the magnesium case rather than the plastic one. You've got the improved design here. We don't have this chin sticking out here so much. So it's kind of cosmetic stuff, case materials, the sounds, the name of the detector. Does it go upside down? Whoop-de-doo, It's little things like that, but fundamentally they're the same detector. They've got the same features as far as TSR, the ability to pair with Escort Live, the long-range performance, your immunity from radar detectors, all that kind of stuff. It shares the same M3-based platform between both detectors. It's just kind of some cosmetic stuff and different sounds and whatnot. But otherwise, it's the same detector. So if you're in the market for a Redline, definitely take a look at a Magnum as well. I'll put links in the video description to where you can go see it. Typically, the prices of these guys are more affordable than what's available here, so it's a way to basically get a Redline for less money. So kind of cool. There you go. Hope that's been helpful. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask down in the comment area below. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.